Aloha.
Good morning. Good day.
Good morning, good day.
Is afternoon for you?
Yeah, it is. We're testing a new platform today, people. We're testing Riverside.fm. Apparently, it's quite a popular platform used by Tim Ferriss, Joe Rogan. And one of the cool features we talked about in one of the previous episodes that we were looking forward to is being able to share a screen to show what we're talking about, whether that's a website or an infographic or whatnot. So we're excited to give this a try. This is the first episode recording with Riverside FM.
It looks nice so far. I mean, it's similar to Zencaster, I guess, which is what we were using before.
Yeah, it's fairly simple and straightforward and has a couple more features, and I'm excited to dive into it. It looks a bit like Whereby, which I use instead of Zoom for video meetings and whatnot. That's whereby.com if you want to check that out. So it seems pretty fast, similar layout. All right, I want to talk about a few things, and the first thing I want to talk about is what you started talking to me about a few days ago, and I'm like, okay, let's save this for the podcast. And you said you want to minimize your tech. What do we call this? Your tech habits. What do you call this?
Yeah, dude. I just noticed so I don't have any social media on my phone. But I still engage with my phone a ton. So I literally recently realized I'll just like habitually open up Gmail. I check my Gmail probably 50 times a day. I actually don't know the real number, but I'm scared to look. I don't think I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll even I recently noticed that I'll open up YouTube and refresh my YouTube feed. I was like, it's like this compulsive thing. There's not even anything I'm looking for. But I think my brain is just looking for some dopamine. So this is a vehicle to do that.
And the YouTube is on the phone or it's on a computer?
On the phone. So I deleted the only social media that I had was Twitter because there was like some work value in it. Removed it from my phone a couple weeks ago, maybe. Is that when I told you about that? But I haven't been on it since. I was like, oh, I'll just go on the browser.
And you haven't been on?
I haven't been on it or on desktop. The only time I've been on is I think you maybe sent me a link or Scott sent me a link, yeah.
Do you think you're missing out on anything work-related, value-related?
No, I actually can't tell you how much I don't care about what's going on Twitter. I just don't care. When you're on it, you feel like you have to keep up and stay on top of it. It's almost anxiety-inducing. And then we can go into this later, but I just finished, I read the Comfort Crisis last weekend, and he talks about like how much people are using their phones and how it just like keeps you in this like sitting, non-human sort of existence. And I thought, all right, I'm done with this shit.
So what is the Comfort Crisis? In a few words.
Ooh, it's a book written by Michael Easter, and it's basically explaining how all of our comforts are basically driving all of the problems that we have today. We're always temperature controlled. We're never really hungry. We never have to suffer for long periods of time. We never have to carry weight for a long distance. And all of these things were part of our, until very, very recently, until the Industrial Revolution, Agricultural Revolution, and a couple of other milestones, these things got eliminated from our lives. But we evolved with some degree of these outside stressors that, allowed us to kind of carry on as a species, and then we just removed them all.
So it sounds like the Comfort Crisis is the complete opposite of ancestral living or ancestral lifestyle.
Yeah, well, so the Comfort Crisis is just basically saying, and I think we could do. So I loved the book, loved it.
How thick are we talking about?
I read it in a weekend. I started it,
okay,
and then I didn't read for a couple of days because some stuff going on, and then I just read it over the weekend. And I wasn't like sitting down reading all weekend. I just in the mornings and in the evenings.
Okay, so, but okay, so we got, what do we call this? like stress from sedentary lifestyle, technology, temperature, food. What else is in the mix?
I mean, there's a whole bunch of things he goes into. Even, oh man, I think I could do a whole show on this because I have a bunch of notes and I'm in the process of organizing all that. And maybe should we save it, or do you want to just do it now? I don't really have any.
No, I mean, I'd love to get your what are your biggest takeaways? Like you just read the book. What are the biggest takeaways? I mean, it sounds like you removed, as you said, social media completely from your phone. You want to minimize your, I'm not going to call it a tech footprint, but like your tech habits. What else?
I'm back to rucking more often. I take my son and my dog on a walk every day. There's like a little trail that's like a 30-minute loop behind my house. So I'm like, throw on the backpack. It's also, I've been having,
tell people what.
Oh, rucking is just a backpack with a weight in it, basically.
So how many pounds are you carrying? Well, you're carrying your son as well?
Yeah, my son's like, I don't know, 15 pounds or something like that. Does that
your
sound
son
right?
in the front, and then you have weight in the back, or you have weight in the front, in the back, and your son?
No, I have weight just in the back. So it's not like a weight vest. I think the idea behind rucking is that it's not completely centered on your the center of gravity is not in alignment with your body, so you're kind of lugging it in a way, which I think would be common if you were to kill an animal and you have to drag it back to camp or wherever you're going to butcher or process or eat it. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but I've also noticed I really like rucking. I've been having little structural issues from old injuries, CrossFit injuries and such, and I've been working with the chiro, and I notice when I load myself up with this pack, which is I think 45 pounds or something like that, plus my son,
Ooh.
And I go for a walk, it's like this uneven terrain. I'm forced to walk more intentionally, and more stabilized. I noticed it, and I don't have as much kind of creakiness in my low back and in my hips.
Wow.
I think because I'm stabilizing around it.
What brand of rucking backpack are you wearing?
Go Ruck is the company.
Is it RUCK?
Ruck, yeah, RUCK. Go Ruck is the company, and they're based in they're in Florida, I believe. And it's just such an easy way to. I mean, first it gets your heart rate up normally. If you have to walk somewhere, say I think the example he uses in the book, the founder of Go Ruck walks his kid to school in the morning.
Okay.
She goes to a Montessori school. He pushes her down the street in her stroller, and he could go for this walk, which is a few miles, but now he puts on this backpack. It gets his heart rate up. He's getting a little bit of help with bone density because being under load helps with bone density, and he's building some strength. And
pretty cool.
The cool thing they talk about with rucking in the book, because it's built, these are like ex-special forces guys. They're pretty badass dudes, and they call their body type, I want to say it's extra medium or super medium. So they're not too muscular, they're not too skinny, they're not fat. They have this really ideal kind of optimal body type to just perform well. So me, liking to stack as many things as possible, I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to take my son for a walk. I'm also going to take the dog for a walk. Okay, I may as well throw on this pack and get a little bit of extra work in.
And so you would just say besides the conscious walking and all that, do you feel discomfort in your body while you're rocking?
No.
I mean, I'm saying that there's no pain. You're engaging your body. You can still walk your son and connect with him. You're getting a workout. You're building most likely bone density, muscle.
Yeah, you know how they say all injuries or most injuries happen in weightlifting at lightweight? They don't happen at heavyweight because you're switched on, you're being more intentional, you're paying attention.
Yeah,
I think it's the same thing with rucking. I'm my steps, because there's a lot of rocks in the trail and stuff. It's definitely not like walking on a sidewalk. I'm paying attention the whole time, because if I slip or trip or am just being lazy with my walking, I could for sure go down.
And this is, and you do this while it's snowing outside?
Yeah, there's no snow on the ground now. I mean, where I live, it'll snow and then it goes away relatively quickly. But yeah, I'll do it with snow on the ground. Unless it's really, it like snowed and melted and then got really cold again. So it's kind of icy and slippery. Then I won't, it's not worth it. Yesterday I didn't do it because, as you know, I had a bit of a stomach issue from eating. I could go into that later, but it got a little experimental with something I ate that didn't agree with me. And I just didn't need any extra force being applied to me yesterday on my little walks.
Yeah, well, you're lucky you were able to go on that walk. From what I heard, let's go to the situation.
I made it out the door about 5 minutes and then had to turn around, run back home, and then went back
Oh, my
out.
God.
Yeah.
Were you still wearing your son while you were on the potty?
Yeah, I was. Actually, I told my wife about that last night.
Damn.
Kept him strapped to the front of me.
Was he sleeping during that, or is he awake?
No, he was awake.
squirming,
He was awake. He usually falls asleep like 15 minutes in. He was awake,
Gotcha.
like kind of looking at me like, what's going on? But all good. So tech
That's
minimalism.
awesome.
Yeah. So this whole thing about me wanting to, I don't know what it is, but I just don't like the phone. It annoys me when I see other people on it, which is my codependence issues. But
would you say it's a love-hate relationship? Obviously, you enjoy a bunch of features that the phone provides you, and you've been using them, but also you have the awareness that it's taking you away from doing other things. Is that what it is?
yeah, I mean, how many times do I need to refresh Gmail? This is like 4-hour work week 101. You check email like once or twice a day. That's it.
True. And I think that could work for some people, considering they have, I would say work. Let's just focusing on work for a second, work that allows them to not check it as often. I mean, somebody in customer success, looking for tickets and having to answer tickets, in a timely manner, that would not work for them. But yeah. So are you going to check your email now? Are you going to go like 4-hour work week and check your email about twice a day?
I don't. The nature of my work is not. I don't need to check. I mean, if there's something that I'm really waiting on, I can go check it. But there's no need. I mean, nothing happens that fast in my line of work. One, and two, any other thing that I work with such a small group of people. If there's something urgent, it's never going to be an email.
So let me get it straight though. Are you implementing new habits with your phone and checking your email, or just kind of simmering on it at the moment?
I'm simmering on it because I've done this before. So I went to a flip phone when I was probably, this is like, maybe the iPhone 3 is out. And I thought, okay, this is all nonsense. This is a waste of time. I'm going to go back to a flip phone. I'm going to take a stand here. And the phone sucked. And I ended up going back to an iPhone after like 6 months. So I don't want to jump back in. That's a long time. Yeah, or maybe it was a summer. Maybe it was 3 months. I don't know. It's a relatively small period of time.
Okay.
So now I'm thinking, because some of my work is app-based, I have like a management app that I use, and I don't want to be glued to that thing on my phone all day, every day. So I thought, okay, what if I get one of these light phones? You've seen the light phone, right?
No, is this LITE? How do you?
LITE phone, PHONE. And
okay. I'm pulling it up, people, so you can see. I'm sharing. I'm sharing screen from. So wait, so I see LIGHT phone. It's probably this one. Let me pull it up.
Maybe it is.
Let me be the Jamie of this conversation right now.
Pull that shit up, Jamie.
This is a reference to Joe Rogan, to the people who are not aware. This is it, right? Cool.
Yeah, so it basically calls, texts. You can download a podcast or something onto it, or audio if you want. And then it also does, I believe, has a map feature.
And this is like black and white. Cool. So this is good for like blue light, looks like.
I mean, dude, it's a phone. That's what it does. It calls and texts. I think text is even a huge advancement on the phone. But it's a phone. It's not a toy. It's not an entertainment device. Go entertain yourself in the world. I'm talking to myself here.
Yeah. It says here, tools, not feeds. The Light Phone 2 is built around a user customizable menu of tools. All the tools are custom designed. Available tools currently include an alarm, a calculator, directions, a simple music player, and a podcast tool.
Okay, so then you can, for a little
And a
bit
hotspot.
extra. Yeah. So for a little bit extra, you can get like unlimited data on a hotspot. And so I thought, okay, maybe I'll just have an iPad with me if I'm usually at home, but let's just say I'm out and about.
Yeah.
I can just quickly tether to the iPad if I have to use some app-based, like Gmail or, this other app that I use for some of the work that I do.
So, okay, so if you're mostly home, though, are you not going to be checking your computer and refreshing Gmail there quite often?
No, I keep most of my work is downstairs. I keep my computer and all that kind of stuff downstairs. So
you'd have to go to another area. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many hours a day do you spend in that other area, Oregon?
I don't know, 2, 3, maybe 4.
Okay, cool. So that will cut a lot of time. How do you think you're going to be feeling? I'm going to call it a void for a second, but how do you think it's going to improve your life in the way that the time that you've been checking your phone for apps and such? What is going to happen now? Are you going to have more creativity? Are you going to be more engaged and more present with life? More mystical things are going to be happening to you? What do you expect to happen?
I think one is engaging with boredom. And there's a whole section on this in the comfort crisis. I don't remember the details exactly. I just remember I highlighted a bunch of stuff and I'm going to go back through it. But the comfort crisis is kind of like one stimulus that is sort of like, it's like the other end of ancestral living. Like, you're not living the way essentially we've evolved or intended to live. We've sort of stepped into this really comfortable, never bored, never hungry, always entertained. You never even have to look further than the walls that you're in. Typically, you're not gazing at the horizon. It causes all sorts of, weakness with the eyes. I just feel like being a little bit more human or a little bit less of a modern human.
That's cool.
Is the intention, but I'm not sure. I don't know. The other side of me is like, just have some discipline, bro.
And that's a thing that came through my mind, right? It's sometimes it's easier to develop the discipline by using another tech tool. I have a tool in my browser that blocks certain websites. I put it, I customize, let's say, Gmail and Twitter and such. And while I'm working, it's on, and then it blocks it for a certain amount of time. And after an hour, it gives me 5 minutes, and I can go and fuck around. Not necessarily what I want to. I can restart the timer. But if I go to that tab, it would just show me like a quote, like an inspirational quote. So I think that's a Pomodoro technique, of working
20 and 5.
25. You take 5 minutes. That one, you could set it to 55, 5. And sometimes it takes that, like, oh, you're already in the habit of going and refreshing those apps, and maybe there's a tool like that for an iPhone as well. And then it doesn't let you in. I think they do. And after you don't get in for a while, now you have less of that habit. Now you have the discipline and the awareness.
I think it's. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I'm thinking I really like the idea of checking email twice a day. Which is, we're going back to the 4-hour work week, and this is over 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago by now. It's 2020. It's January 2023 right now. And
but now you have Slack, which sidesteps email a little bit,
Yes. And I think it for myself, I don't even check my email that often because I don't have that many emails coming in. I think in terms of making that process more exciting, and I think we talked about this about Twitter, for example, for me, which I was using more than I like for a little while. It's more exciting to come in and just kind of get like the big chunk for like 10, 15 minutes to the email, respond. And I'm just going to mention one of the Tim Ferriss habits that he mentioned back then is if there's an email that it would take less than 2 minutes to reply to, just do it now. Mm-hmm. And I try to do that. Of course, otherwise it sits in my inbox and I know that it needs to be responded and I want to be timely with people. And if it takes a little amount of time, I'm just going to do it now. If it's going to be more thoughtful and I'm going to spend, 10, 15, 20 minutes of a response, then I take my time.
I think, dude, the other thing that, so I tell myself, like, be more disciplined, right? But I also, I'm selective about what I buy at the store, because if I buy a bunch of, so for a while I was ordering those, I had those Siete Foods cookies coming in my Thrive order.
I bought a bag of those like 6 months ago. It's still like closed in my pantry.
Bro, I don't know what is going on with you, because the second we order like, 2 bags of each flavor, we're like, oh, this will last us for a month. It just doesn't happen. I just go in there, I tear through a whole bag, no problem. I could tear through 3 bags.
I mean, I could. At the same time, I put it like high up, and I'm looking at it like, is this really what I want right now? But yeah, I get you. Okay, so conscious purchasing of what you have and not having the triggers for things that are not serving you.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Do the same thing with the phone. Like, rather than exhaust myself with having to decide not to exhaust, I use that loosely, but having to decide to not engage with this stuff.
Yeah, take it out of the equation.
Yeah, just remove the obstacle. Focus on something else.
I think that's a good analogy, and it's a good idea. I'm not there with the phone. Fortunately, I don't check it too often, and at the same time, though, the things
What's your screen
in my
time?
phone.
For your screen time, let me see what your screen time is right now.
All right, let's see my screen time. Let's see me in my big talk. So where do I check it? Settings.
I don't know.
I'm going to be real, people. Let's see, screen time. All right, my daily average is 2 hours and 12 minutes on an iPhone. That's a good amount of time. Now I'm going to check where do I spend it.
Bro, I'm embarrassed to tell you mine.
All right, so here's what it says. Today, I'm almost there. I'm an hour 55, and I waited a little bit to an appointment that I'm going to tell you about right after. But most of the time I spend in Brave browser, 37 minutes. 8 minutes in Gmail, 8 minutes on the Amazon app, 5 minutes in messages, 5 minutes Spotify, 4 minutes Telegram, 2 minutes calendar. Then I have a bunch of other 1 minute or less. That's including Discord and other apps.
So does this track, if you have Spotify just playing, does it track that?
It looks like, I'm not sure. I chose, so this week, I have, so average 2 hours and 22 minutes, and it says Brave browser. This is the most that I use. It's an hour and 32 minutes out of those time, and then 49 minutes. Oh, I guess this is total, most used, yeah. So by far I use Brave and messages, and the third one in there above Gmail is Amazon. And, I had a couple birthdays in here and some things to get gift for, and sometimes I spend a good amount of time browsing and trying to figure out the best product to buy. But anyways, I'm happy to say I'm not spending time in social media or in my email much.
Yeah, so today, dude, for me, my number one used app is I've been on the phone an hour and 53 minutes today. I think that's just when the screen is not locked.
Okay.
Because my number one is True Coach, which is my Zach Height does my programming, and it's through the app True Coach. 33 minutes. But then I'm Gmail. Then third is the Wim Hof app, which is 11 minutes, which I do, it's like 10, 15 minutes of Wim Hof.
What was the Gmail? How many minutes in Gmail?
16.
16. Were you replying to people or were you reading newsletters? What do you think?
Reading newsletters.
And that's the thing. So you were reading a newsletter while you were doing what? While you were in the sauna?
No. I was just sitting there this morning, I was drinking some Lion's Mane tea, and I read Pomp's newsletter, and I read The Morning Brew, which I don't know why the hell I read The Morning Brew, but I do.
I don't even know what that is.
Good for you. Don't know what it is.
Why don't you go ahead right now and unsubscribe from something that you are not happy to even tell the world about that you're spending time on?
Okay, let me think about that, and I will come up with something to unsubscribe to.
All right. So, how much value are you getting from the Pump newsletter?
I really like it, and I like to think that he used to read his newsletters through Substack aloud. And then he started having the automated tool, this like AI voice read it. And it sounded like a answering machine kind of a thing. And then I sent him a DM on Twitter. I was like, hey, dude, what are you doing here? Like, keep reading your, I want to hear you. He has these great inflections. Like when he talks, it's entertaining.
Sure.
The reason I'm listening to it is because I want to hear you read it. I can read it faster than I can listen to it, obviously. And he was like, yeah, you're right. Like responded, and he's like, that's a good point. And then he started reading them aloud again. So I was like, I got to keep listening to him now.
That's
cool.
Cool.
He does cool things. He does like a book review, or today he was talking about like how they measure inflation and other, real world nonsense stuff that probably doesn't matter all that much for me to pay attention to.
So this is Anthony Pompliano. Yeah, I'll share his. I'm just testing still with sharing the browser.
His Twitter?
Yeah, this is his website. So it's anthonypompliano.com, and then you can click on subscribe to the Pomp letter.
And he recently, we talked about this, but he stopped doing ads and everything.
Yeah.
Whoa, did he have Chamath on his podcast? Will you go up real quick? Right there.
Looks like it. Boom.
Wow.
I
love Chamath.
Yeah, he's...
And Sax.
Yeah, absolutely. He's crushing it.
He's got the whole all-in crew over there.
Tank Sinatra.
Awesome.
Okay, so I want to tell you about something I'm pretty excited about, although I had only the first appointment today. I had a first appointment, although other family members in my family have had a few of them, and I've seen from their appointments and their progress, and also from my recent understanding of how consciousness works and how the body works and the mind and all that, that it's pretty exciting. Here's the thing. There's something that I may have described here on the podcast before. It's called NRT, that stands for Nutritional Response Testing. And it's using kinesiology, aka muscle testing. And it's a way to ask the body and the brain without asking the thinking brain that has emotions and all other things and the mind involved, asking the brain what does it need. And from learning about the body in general and how consciousness works, it's all an electromagnetic. Everything is energy and frequency. Let's start by that. And then what happens sometimes with dis-ease or discomfort in the body, or discomfort with thoughts and emotions, is that there's something in our circuitry, and you can think about it as like a breaker panel in the house, and one of the breakers is off, or a few of them are off, and the whole house is not functioning in coherence or as well. Maybe the fridge is off, the heating is off, the dishwasher is off. Now the household are not operating in as much harmony. Now this, from my understanding, that's the same way that the body and our being, as humans and such and souls, that's how it works. So, for example, I have a rib injury that happened almost 3 years ago, and I've seen a few chiropractors, 3 of them. Got some progress with the last one. I'm keeping my pain levels, I would say, to around 2. Still a bunch of discomfort, and not much progress has been going on in almost a year since I've seen the last chiropractor. It's going to be 3 years in a few weeks, like literally 2-3 weeks.
I feel like that just happened. Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a bit frustrating and discomfort. And we talked about training, things that I love to do, things that also my energy, my soul likes to do in terms of expressing itself. And I can go into working out karma and all that stuff, and being strong and being able to play with my family, and there's all kinds of things that have to do with the body. And pain, of course, is not fun. And this skeletal misalignment that I've had with a rib popping out has been affecting my, my neck, my eyes, my eyes are being getting fatigued and dry, and my energy, and my sleep, and my hip flexors, and my kidneys, and there's such a ripple effect to having misalignment in the body. Now, of course, nobody's perfectly aligned, but I'm talking about more of an acute misalignment that is, more extreme in that way. Now, I went to see this doctor that happens to live 8 minutes away from me. He's a doctor of chiropractor. I think that is this how you say it? Doctor of chiropractor? Yeah. Doctor of chiropractic? How do you even say that?
Chiropractic. Yeah, he's a chiropractor.
Yeah, chiropractic. So he went to the same university as Dr. Joe Dispenza and a bunch of other people that have pretty famous and very successful in the world. It's called Life University. It's close by here in Georgia to my house in Marietta, Georgia, is where the university is at. And they really talk about consciousness and muscle testing and such. He did not learn this technique there. This technique, and I'm going to show the website. It's not a pretty website by any means, but this is the technique. And if you want to look for a practitioner later on, this is where you want to go. So I'll share while I'm talking about it. And this is called Neuorlink. Here it is. Neuorlink is the developer of the neurological. Did I get the right one? Yeah. Integration system, a global training program for practitioners, offering profound benefits to patients throughout the world. The science behind it, over 30 years research and developing. This guy, Dr. Alan Phillips. It's on the principles of neuroscience, yada, yada. If you want to look for a practitioner, you're going to click on find a practitioner. But let me tell you about what's going on in there. So what's happening is through muscle testing and through his techniques of understanding neurology and acupuncture and acupressure, he's pretty much asking my body, touching the rib, touching all kinds of other areas, the brain communication between left and right hemisphere, organs, and asking each area of the body if it's functioning well or not. He sees if it's switched on or switched off. And getting very specific without asking me as a person, but really getting to my subconscious mind, to the brain. This is my understanding so far, right? What is going on and what needs to be turned on and how it wants to be turned on. So, from my understanding, quickly getting on attention there, no healer and no person can heal another person. It can help guide another person to heal themselves. The body is a self-healing organism. It can be guided through breath work, through medicine, through meditation, through this technique, Neuorlink or nutritional response testing or muscle testing. So long story short, he's checking my whole body and all kinds of different things and finding the connections of what's going on. And he's like tapping on my head and he's like turning on with this neurofeedback my switches, pretty much my breaker panel. Turns it all on, and then he does pretty much that's the adjustment, like tapping on my head while he's checking a few things, the ears and this and that. He's finding all these connections, and he said that my rib situation has been connected to an emotion, at least one emotion that has not been processed well, that had to do with fear. And if you know me, my mind is telling me I'm not afraid of anything, and I tell this to myself, and I'm not really, on my conscious mind, I'm not afraid of anything. Of course, if I get into a specific situation, I have the basic fear of I'm not going to touch a hot plate. I'm not going to go into a dark alley where it doesn't seem too inviting. And if in the darkness something's going to jump at me, I'm going to have a fearful reaction. But in general, I'm not afraid of life. I'm not afraid of death. I'm living with joy and acceptance that things are the way they are and everything that is a gift in my life. But anyway, so he kind of finds out with the emotions and something in the brain stem. And he called it, I think he called it Lucas. I never even heard of it. Something in the brain stem. And anyways, he turns it on and then he gets me off the table. So he's doing this while I'm laying down and have my arm up, and he's testing my arm for muscle testing as he's doing this. And then he tells me to walk his office 5-6 times. And he said, it's going to feel like you're off. Because he just switched so many breakers in my breaker panel of my being in my brain that as I get off the table, I feel pretty off. I'm kind of walking like I'm on a boat. It's I walk a few times and I'm kind of recalibrating now because I am a walking piece of hardware and software at the end of the day. I'm walking, I'm recalibrating. He's checking again. Okay, things are looking good with most breakers. Then he's finding a few other, let's say, micro breakers that now show that they're off. Does another tap, this and that. I'm walking again, and then he checks everything, and I'm good to go. And he told me I'm going to be most likely pretty tired tonight, as he just turned on a bunch of new things. My body needs to adjust to that new way of being. He said in a couple of days I may be super happy just because things are turned on, and immediately I could feel, my rib and my traps tension went away very quickly. This guy was only tapping on me. It's been fascinating. And the reviews that this guy has on his website are phenomenal. I mean, resolving serious situations with people, serious diseases and things that, doctors going to find all kinds of specialists and really communicating directly with the body, with the brain on the subconscious level, and giving the brain what it wants to get. The brain is directing the show. He's just doing the communication and interpretation of what the brain is saying, and helping collect those breakers. And then the brain and everything else, the body is self-healing. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm pretty excited to continue working with him. I'm going to come in once a week for like a few minutes, pretty much 10 minutes. He's going to check the breakers, turn whatever needs to be turned on until my body relearns this new calibration. And, we'll see where that goes.
Dude, that's awesome. I was just thinking, so you do have to continue. It's like, I see my chiro 2 times a week right now. You have to keep going.
Well, I don't know for how long, but, just like in life with many things, and we talked about the Gmail thing. You can decide you're not going to go on Gmail again, but the habits are there, and there are neural pathways that are firing in a certain way, and the more they've been firing in a certain way, they're gonna come back to the most easiest route for them to do, which if it's to check Gmail on the toilet, that's what's going to happen. So that's the same way with walking a certain way and shifting weight to a certain side. There's some expectation in some habits they're going to take a while to kind of break away from. So this is why also people go back to a chiropractor to keep getting to the pattern. And then I'm not sure what your chiropractors say, but other chiropractors that I've seen said, make sure you get a good amount of movement today. Perhaps you want to get a workout later on because you want to be now firing those new patterns with the adjustment, with the change. So I'm going to make sure that I do more movement today. Because then if you come back to the way you're sitting, the way I'm standing right now, walking, etc., then perhaps the body's going to go quickly into what it's used to already because it's just used to doing something. It's going to continue doing that path. So he didn't give me those instructions. He does know that I'm pretty passionate about holistic lifestyle. So he's like, just make sure you're well hydrated during the day and keep doing what you're doing with diet and movement and such. Just expect to be a bit more tired tonight. And I'm pretty excited about that. And, my wife, my daughter, and even my son, who's only a few months old, is going to be there, going to him just to see if there's anything to be turned on. Why not?
Dude, that's
quick.
awesome.
It's quick. And to me, and there are other ways that I've learned about turning the circuitry on. And I'm coming back to Dr. Joe Dispenza. It can be done through meditation. It can be done through breath work, which is what I've been learning from Dr. Sue Morter. It can be done through, there's a combination of things. The more toxins we have in the body, with certain diets, talking about cookies, even if they're Siete Foods cookies, sugars, being sedentary, those factors, of course, are going to be contributing to turning switches off. And we talk about the comfort crisis, kind of going full circle on it. The more we do things that the body does not want to do, although the brain may want to be doing, or the mind, the more there's going to be breakers that turn off. And with that, we're going to have to do more work to turn them on. So keeping a healthy lifestyle, is very important. Although it's helpful to get some guidance and sometimes some intervention on turning things on. I think especially at a later age, perhaps kids don't have as much of that as, they're running around, they're outside. Hopefully that's the case for a lot of kids. I know that may not be the case anymore. But yeah, getting into the comfort crisis again, looking at the phones and being, not being in a more of the what the human body has been craving and used to for millions of years, hundreds of thousands of years. I don't know, but a big number.
Dude, so I got to check with my chiro because she went to that school in Marietta as well.
Nice.
See if she's heard of this. I'm sure she has because that's very much her approach. That's cool. I'm excited to see how that unfolds with you. You're the last one to do it, right, though? Everyone else has done it in your family?
My daughter and my wife, and my son is due in a couple of weeks. He's going to have his first appointment because, he's the youngest, and in terms of priorities, he's most likely turned on, like, almost all the way. Yeah. I mean, seeing between my wife and my daughter, there was much less to turn on with my daughter. We did go because she started getting, like, dry skin, a bit more tired, and she also has been going to a school for the past year that serves lunch, and it's not organic. and some bread in there, some glyphosate. We've been very conscious about the ingredients that we choose and how we eat and the order of things and macros and all that. And now it's we're not bringing her a lunch. Everybody's having the same lunch. It's not necessarily all toxins, but there's a good amount of toxins, and we've seen a decline in her health ever since she started going to that school. Also, we've seen a lot of joy from her new friendships, and she loves her teachers and all that. So, we decided to stick with that school. But so that's kind of a little story there about my daughter who's 4 years old.
Dude, that's great. I think, coming back to that, I mean, even with the comfort crisis, it's all about like living this sort of more human life and keeping things in alignment. Yeah, your son is probably the most in alignment because he hasn't been quite as domesticated. And I was just telling my wife yesterday, or maybe a couple of days ago, that the times that I'm having the most, enjoying myself the most, or feel, maybe not enjoying myself the most, but feel the best, like mentally, physically, everything, or when I'm on a hunting trip or a fishing trip, or when I'm working outside. I'll go help this lady who runs a farm here, and I'll go just help her do things outside. That's when I feel by far the best, the most joy. I was actually talking to a mutual friend, AG, yesterday, and he was saying that's his farm project is the most fun he's had with any project ever.
That's awesome.
And so I think, like this very human, using your body and not letting it go dormant.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's what it is. Do you think that's what it is? Is certain parts of you are going dormant because you haven't? I mean, you spent a good amount of time working on tech projects and stuff like that.
And that happened around the time that I was working on a lot of tech projects. I was very sedentary, and I was stressing about those tech projects, on delivering on deadlines, communicating with clients. Let's say in very simple language, taking shit in some ways, and from other people, whether they had a bad day, communicating with them, and something happened to them family wise, and I'm interacting with them and kind of taking on that energy for whatever reason, even if it's not directed at me. And I think we talked about this, feeling somebody else's sadness, feeling somebody else's anxiety. There's something to be said about the amount of anxiety this comfort crisis, the working with the technology, not grounding outside, not being in the sunlight, not getting morning sun, evening sun, vitamin D, all these things adding up, and then communicating through these devices that emit man-made electromagnetic fields that build up a lot of protons in our bodies. There's just all this misbalance going on. So I was in that mode, like to the extreme. The one thing that was working for me was that I was hitting the marks on where I wanted to be financially at the time, with the expense of working on the computer much more, working with all kinds of different clients much more often, which means just more variables in the people that I work with. There were a lot of joy and a lot of good laughs involved. Also, it came with a price. And I think, as you talked about it, I do enjoy when I have a good balance of perhaps doing about 3 hours of work on the computer per day, and the rest of the time I can be more out, spend more time outside in nature, barefoot, in the sun, connected to the earth, spending time with my dog, spending time with my kids, in a garden, hiking. Nature there's something called forest bathing for the ones who may not have heard about it. It's a term about just walking in nature, and apparently with studies, it has shown to help improve somebody's mood and also physical state. And that's just being in nature, because that's part of what we came here with, the comfort crisis of, there are a lot of dopamine hits, and we are addicted to those dopamine hits coming from Twitter, Gmail, other social medias, the news and whatnot, and YouTube. But at the end of the day, in terms of overall how we're feeling, besides those dopamine hits, like mice in a cage, we feel better when we're outside. And unfortunately, there are less and less people who won't spend time outside because inflation and work and all of these constraints. I mean, especially in the United States, people are working a good amount. They're not taking a lot of time for themselves, and it's a stressful living for a lot of people in the Western world, thinking about how to just pay for their basic needs and a little bit of vacation time. And I think that's kind of what it, and organic food and pasture raised food and avoiding toxins. It's the modern world is definitely a lot to juggle and a lot to figure out. And most of the work today for most people is involved from like using a screen. That's what it is. Whether they're sitting in an office or they're sitting at home, they're going to be working with a screen. If they're not working the screen, they're working in a department store. They may be in a department store with a lot of fluorescent blue lights beaming on them, and they're also wearing shoes and not connecting to the earth either. So they're inside. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm missing on a lot of others, but it seems like the amount of farmers and the amount of people that lead fly fishing trips and rafting trips are not a lot.
Mm-hmm. No, it is really rare, and I think it's getting less and less rare, or more and more rare, less and less common. Yeah.
Well, I know that as with this tech, and there's a lot of great comforts that come with the tech. Talking about the comfort crisis, being able to browse products on Amazon as I did, and getting them delivered to my door, and not having to drive between store to store, or go to Target or wherever that is to look for those things, and maybe not even find them and go to another store. There's a lot of I do enjoy that. I do enjoy being able to browse it, get it to my door, whether that's groceries or other products, and being able to do that is great joy. Being able to consume knowledge or perspective from other people, such as Pump in a newsletter or books or videos, it's a great joy. There are a lot of great joys to technology, and it's phenomenal. It's fantastic. I mean, we're recording a podcast right now. You're in the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. You're in the Pacific. You're in the Northwest. I'm in the Southeast. Where as far as it comes pretty much in this country, and it will take a lot of resources and a lot of scheduling and a lot of work to make it happen otherwise. And I am grateful for technology. And as you said, there's a lot of awareness that needs to be put in, and sometimes even more technology in terms of putting the brakes on how to use technology. It's really quite the crisis and challenge to figure out how to work with technology.
It's just, I think a lot of this is so new to us as a species that we haven't quite learned how to use it the right way yet. It's, like right when you first get it, it's like you're all in, you're doing it all the time, everything revolves around it. And I think the pendulum will probably swing the other way where people get more aware of their use of all these things. But I don't know, maybe I'll order the light phone and do that whole thing for a little while. I don't know if it really matters all that much. Again, it's not like I'm a crazy chronic phone user. I just use it more than I'd like to, and I catch myself doing it unintentionally. It's like I'm not waiting for something. Why did I just open Gmail and check that? It was like a random kind of like subconscious act.
I do want to touch on something that relates to things. Something that I used to do more often, and I'm going to implement again. Things fall off the rails sometimes when my routine changes. And my routine changed when my son came into the world, and it has been a more unstable routine, not knowing when he's going to wake up or not getting enough sleep. I don't know if enough, but not getting much sleep. And the one thing really that I think can set the tone for finding more ease with checking social media and such, and doing more unconscious behavior with technology, is to set the tone the day before, especially for people that are have more control of their time, their environment in terms of their work. So for me, is setting the day before the top 3 things that I'm going to accomplish the next day, and getting those done first, and then from that point, whether I would be scrolling on, let's call it a newsletter, reading newsletters in my inbox or Twitter or whatnot, felt less of a burden, because I know that the most important things that I want to do for my own self, and whether that would be in those 3 most important things, go on a 30-minute walk, or accomplish and record a podcast, when I know that I've done those 3 important things, and whether that's 5 for you or 2 or 1, that really sets the tone. And something usually it usually propels somebody to do more of the things that they really enjoy, and less time on the unconscious behavior looking for dopamine. And for example, last night I did not do that. I did do something that is important. I did do already 2 of the things. I didn't write them down, but finding a new platform to record the podcast, and I'm happy we found Riverside. We'll see how that pans out. And recording this podcast today. And I need to figure out what's the 3rd thing. I do have a list of things here on my whiteboard, but I need to reprioritize. And for me, just for my feeling inside of like I'm making progress and I'm enjoying making this progress. And I, as we talked about with Seth Godin, I think it's called The Practice, the book that he mentioned last time. To know that what I'm doing is not only for joy, it's not only because, I deem it important, it's because I feel a call to do this work, and this work is impactful, and this is work. This has value to the world. And this is what I'm here to do. And this is part of what I'm here to do. Recording this podcast. So, yeah. Beautiful things here.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I like your 3 things. I also like, you have those little habits. You also lay your clothes out the night before bed, which is the next day before. And I've been practicing doing that. I probably do it like 5 out of 7 days a week. But it's nice to just get up and be rolling right into that. I think where I lose that connection, I'll wake up, I'll go straight to do my meditation. I do literally from meditation seated, I lay down flat and do my breath work. So it's really easy to get from one to the next. And then I do a light, little bit of movement. And then it's when I go from that point to, I have probably about an hour to kill before I go for my morning walk, that's where I'll usually like check my phone and blah, 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 blah. I usually do some reading around then too. But now that I think about it, there's never been a time where I pick up my phone, go through Gmail or anything like that and think, fuck, that was great. I feel really good after doing that.
Yeah. For
it's
sure.
Always like, I always feel guilty. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing looking at all this right now? This is all nonsense. It's a waste of my time. They sucked me in.
Yeah. And it's time wasted, and look at the clock, and whether that be 10 minutes after, 20 or 30 minutes after, I'm like, I could have read, and I have a bunch of books and then once I get into that thing, my concentration also goes down, and I don't really have that much of a motivation to even read. Or I'm not making much of that book because I'm started thinking about the thoughts that came into my mind from reading what somebody else thrown into my inbox, and whether that's important or whether that's beneficial for my overall mission or not, that's not what I want to flood my mind with. And I think, as you were saying there, and this is something that I'm going to implement very soon, is reading in the morning is part of my reward. During my morning routine, and then I'm reading before I'm doing my work. That's a reward to me because I enjoy reading, and I enjoy reading with a clear, clean mind. But yeah, so I think actually with laying the clothes the day before, and I'm quickly going to touch on it, I put my clothes for the day the night before, and as soon as I wake up, I brush my teeth, and I the next thing that I do is I'm going to get dressed for the day, and that sets the tone for me, like the way I feel. I put on my clothes that are not PJ, so I feel differently, and I feel like I'm ready to go, and then I roll into the morning routine, and it's usually meditation, breath work, movement. Sometimes cold plunging. I'm pretty excited that cold plunges are running right now, and I think I have a few minutes before I leave to quickly get a little inflammation reduction and boost my organs, and get going with the rest of the day.
I like that. I think I'm going to try to get a plunge in my backyard. I was going to get an actual, just because it's so cold outside, I was going to put a trough out there, and because my wife is not into me getting a full big one yet.
Get one of those the circular tubs, and when it's cold enough, you won't have to do anything. This is what what's his name used to do, the paleo guy, Rob Wolf. Yeah, just break the ice in the morning, just come in. Those are pretty cheap.
It's cold enough. Yeah, I think a couple $100 I can get one of those. I'm gonna get the big, like the galvanized one that I can sit in, and I can, it's like I think it's like 5 feet long or whatever.
Well, those like big barrels, those like kind of rubber barrels. You just you stand in, you can like squat down.
Yeah,
super nice, and you can bring them with you. You can bring them with you, like to go somewhere.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm booking 3 camping trips this weekend. I have like a whole bunch of different sites laid out and places that are around here in the Pacific Northwest. The problem is up here there's like a billion places you can go.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. So that's one of my things on my list this weekend. I'm going to book 3, have the weekends done. Everything's ready to go. It's on the calendar. I know it's happening. I don't have to think about it.
It's fantastic. Okay, let's wrap this one up, and we'll see you all next week, people.
Beautiful. Thanks, Doc.
All right. Thank you all. Peace.